Hi, I'm Evan Bezuidenhout. I'm a South African living in London. My background is in corporate finance advisory with BDO, and then moving across to investing for about 20 odd years. Moved from a more generalist investing into sustainability when I joined Earth Capital, and later became the CEO there. With a focus on my sort of specialist area was around water tech. Since we exited Earth Capital, I am as an advisor or non-exec with growth stage companies that have had VC backing, and I have also qualified now. I do turnaround work as well, usually with VC-backed businesses as well.
Hi, I'm Archie Thomason from Varesco Group, senior associate at Varesco. We work on the advisory side as well as capital management. On the capital management side, we have an Australian fund focused on farmland. We are still raising and getting to our first close, but deploying from that immediately. We've raised 105 million Australian dollars at this moment, and that's focused on looking at regenerative agriculture, in particular in the beef industry. On the advisory side, we support companies all the way from around seed stage all the way up to more growth SME companies. That may be on fundraisers, turnarounds, all the way to exits, but predominantly our work and our specialism really is in the agri-food industry. Before that, I was at a asset management company called Milltrust. Worked there in their venture arm and deploying small tickets from about 200,000 all the way up to 1 million. But yeah, pleasure to be here, and looking forward to helping.
Hi everyone, Fabiola Franca here, founder and managing partner of Blueverse. Blueverse is the emerging, or quite emerged, almost emerged fund, VC fund, looking at frontier tech, deep tech. I was going to say we are global. We're not quite global. We have teams in Europe, Switzerland, UK, continental Europe, Switzerland, Singapore, US. And we recently signed a strategic cooperation agreement with the Z Park in China, in Beijing, which is what they call the China Silicon Valley. So hopefully that will help the founders we decide to back, either with capital and or with advice, to expand and penetrate the Chinese market. I also contribute to the World Economic Forum, various reports around what started as from the metaverse to the inevitable AI and more technologies at the frontier of human and machine. And also I'm also a jury member for the European Innovation Council. They give grants and invest in startups in continental Europe, and they give grants to the UK, not investments. So yeah, that's me.
Is that me next? I've lost count of where we are, Anton. Has everyone spoken?
It is you, Richard. You're the last one, Richard.
Sorry, there's a few of you. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. First of all, Anton, congratulations on what you've achieved. I really enjoyed hearing those metrics. I think I enjoyed joined one of your earlier panels. It's great to see where it's come. I've launched a company in Australia a few years ago. We built that from start to a 60 mil turnover and exit, which was exciting. That sort of catapulted me into the entrepreneurship world. On the board of a similar company in the consumer goods, packaged goods sector for another company similar in the UAE, which I'm running and turning over said millions, which is great. The last 8 or 9 years, I've been working as the principal director for the Founder Institute, the biggest early stage startup accelerator globally. and have seen in that time many early stage founders pre-seed to seed. We help get to launch, and many have raised funds. Also just advising many tech startups here in London, and in my spare time we've just launched some university programs for postgrad students for entrepreneurship studies.
That is amazing. I mean, look at this panel. Absolute gold. Thank you very much to all four of you, team. You'll have to forgive me because I can't seem to find my headset. So I normally tend to use one device for live streaming. And by the way, speaking of live streaming, from February, everything will be on our Microsoft Teams call. So no more live streaming. It will all be streamlined into one platform, and then obviously after the session we'll edit it and launch it as, or release it rather, as podcasts on YouTube and Spotify, and perhaps Apple too, but currently we're testing YouTube and Spotify to see what you know, how we can do that best. So do's and don'ts. I'm sure you've seen some horrible stuff out there, but maybe also stuff that you were surprised and impressed by founders that you worked with. So if we can have one do and one don't each, that would be great. Perhaps if we can start with Archie, Fabio, Richard, and last but not least, David, please. One do and one don't when it comes to early stage fundraising.
Okay. Yeah, first on the do, prepare for your raises. Do not go to investors, you know, with 3, even 6 months left of runway. I would always say go out, begin the early conversations as soon as possible, get them familiar with your work, understand each other, and allow them to keep track of your progress. No investor is ever going to come up with immediately say yes or they'd usually say no, but yes or no, a binary decision right away. You're more likely to make progress when they are tracking your progress, your momentum, and seeing which sort of notch, you know, you're climbing up the ladder. In terms of don'ts, I would say don't, if you're a solo founder, don't, hoard everything and control everything yourselves. Try and outsource what you can to trusted partners. Obviously there's a limit to this. You don't want to suddenly start delegating everything, but the more you put down on paper, the more you challenge yourself in explaining your own thesis, your own company, your own work, the better your own capabilities and work will be, and as a result you'll be bringing in others and other people with other skills that you perhaps lack.
Yeah, great advice, thanks. What I would add, perhaps, I mean, there are many do's and don'ts, but I would say with all the help founders can get with AI and crafting decks and writing literature, clearly, the level as well, decks are much better written, and but still you need to, as a founder, you need to come up with a great story, and most importantly, control the narrative before any conversation about valuations and economics, and let capital follow you, and instead of following capital, I think, and the way you do that is by crafting a narrative, and the narrative comes from having supreme confidence in your product, knowing your markets, a niche market really well, knowing a few customers or potential customers really well, and it's very tempting for a narrative, for a story to feel to come across as big, as too early, and that's a mistake. So control the narrative, control the direction. Don't be too greedy with the valuation. And probably the worst, don't let bad capital on your cap table. The first few checks should be signals to the market. People, angels coming on. It doesn't matter what sort of check they write, as long as you have them, on your board, on your deck, or like proving your worth as an execution founder, or proving a market. That's very important. And then let institutional capital follow. That would be my two advice.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with the storytelling. We do a lot of that work with our founders. It's very, very vital. Okay, so this next statement could probably fall into either do or don't. So I'm just going to see how I feel about which one I'm going to put it in. Stop building is what I'd say. We say this to a lot of founders, and I'm talking about early stage. There needs to be more time for learning, and what I mean by learning is that validation process with the customer. Rather than we all understand the lean process, we all understand MVP and what that means, but despite that, we see so many founders just the accelerator is down and they race to launch a product or an MVP that they haven't actually spent enough time with customers in testing it and going through it in detail, in a detailed validation process. So do that. I'll put that in the do pile. Do spend time learning how your customer will interact with that product, because if you don't, there's a high risk that you'll have a lovely product in the market that no one is really prepared to pay for. Okay, so that leaves me with a don't. I was with a client last week, and a problem that I saw that he had was he hired too fast. So that would be my don't. I thought this was an interesting experience because, the overhead was killing him in terms of the hires. He had some fantastic people that had all sorts of experience, ahead of growth and CTO, etc., and started paying them. But I believe the conversation went, he hired too fast. It was a bit premature because he didn't quite have product market fit and the traction bringing in that reoccurring revenue. So that would be something I'd just love to share that I'm passing on, because I was exposed to that. And do not hire too fast. That's it for me, Anton.
Is that me next, Anton?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Eva.
Hi. Oh, thanks to everyone else for the comments, and I'll try come in something a bit different, but obviously I think everyone's covered a lot of the ground. For me, a big yes is about being prepared. Make sure that when you go out and you start meeting investors, you know your numbers, you understand your cap table, you understand your business model and your product, and you can articulate it really well. Sometimes it's quite easy, and you see this a lot, when you're so involved in your business 24/7, you think other people are just going to understand it and get your passion for it, but they're not. So something I think could be really helpful for people before they're going out to meet investors the first time is, whether it's friends, families, colleagues, ex-colleagues, whatever, is get a few people around and do some dress rehearsal presentations to them and get them to ask you some really tough questions, so you can make sure you're articulating it in a way people understand, and that they're asking questions and you can see where people may be missing what you're trying to get across. So I've seen that work really well ahead of a pitching for real. And on the don'ts, don't be less than honest ever. If you don't know the answer, don't blag it, don't lie. If you don't have the information, say, I'll tell you what, I don't have that with me right now, I'll get that back to you. Make sure you follow up, make sure you get the answer and you send it over. But, if you're going to get investment from someone, that relationship needs a lot of honesty and trust. And any lies you tell about your business, they will get found out. So try and be honest. If it doesn't matter if you haven't got something, just say, I haven't got that, but this is how we're dealing with that problem. Don't be less than honest, and start building that relationship and that trust early.
Amazing stuff. Thank you very much to all four of you. Well, we now have, wow, only 36 minutes to go, so we need to be quick on questions. For those of you that are here on the call on Microsoft Teams, simply drop your question in the chat. I'll give you the mic, you introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. For those of you that are on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please bear in mind that unfortunately we can't monitor your questions there live, so you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down a little bit, you'll see today's session, which is Startup Fundraising Q&A 166. We're here to help you get some funding for your business to take it to the next stage. There are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. Today, you can ask us anything to do with fundraising, whether it's about how to reach out to investors once there are time, how much you should ask for. Should you go to an investor? Is it probably best to go to an angel or a bank or a crowdfunding or a grant? How do you prepare for it? How do you do your due diligence? How do you get your pitch deck done? How do you actually pitch when you get there? And anything and everything within that sphere, this is the place to ask it. Again, it's via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down, you'll see Startup Fundraising Q&A 166. You click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and there you'll see today's link, which is obviously, as always, a Microsoft Teams audio only call, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. And once you're here, also for those of you that are here already, all you have to do to ask a question is drop that question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, you introduce yourself, and then fire away. So without further ado, we'll go on to our first question that was sent in. B2B platform for supplier diversity tracking. They're based out of Cardiff. They're pre-seed. And by the way, the question is in the chat, panelists, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams and for the recording when we release this as a podcast. So pre-seeds, their current situation is that they're preparing to launch a pre-seed round, but concerned about low engagement in early spring. Really? Okay. Question. Our B2B supplier diversity platform is planning a pre-seed round in early spring, but we're unsure about investor activity at this time. Are there specific industry events or pitch days in spring that could attract B2B investors, or should we adjust our timeline to align with a more active mid-year funding season in the UK? Would starting with an informal networking in Q1 be advisable to build momentum? It's an interesting one. In my experience, this between now and May could be one of the hottest times to raise. You've got the end of tax year, so especially if you're EIS or SEIS, that could come in handy. Angel syndicates tend to be quite active at this stage. It's a strange one. Let's hear it from the panelists. Any advice on how these people in Cardiff can maximize their outreach? So maybe if we can start with Fabio, then Richard, then Avens, and then Archie, please. If we can take about a minute each, that would be great.
Yeah. The question in itself is a little bit concerning. I mean, there is no dead time for to fundraise, and certainly spring is not dead. It's just good enough, quiet enough for serious move, and the players, the real players, are watching. I mean, we are here, on the panel. So yes, the answer is start now. And being investors in the VC's pipeline, So you're not too late in their inboxes, coming busy season, which could be, May, June, or just before the summer. Start the conversations, build, hit up your story. Don't leak too much. Focus on building, and if you have to pick, a mass, a networking event, pick one or two. UKBA is usually pretty good. Check out the dates where you can meet those people, but don't talk to anyone and everyone about your startups. If you are in B2B, I'm not really sure what B2B diversity, supply diversity tracking, I'm not really sure what that is, but surely you have identified similar companies, potential competitors, direct or indirect, hopefully only indirect. Otherwise, you're just replicating something that already exists, and see if those companies have been funded, by whom, build up a list of investors or potential VCs potentially interested in these products, and then start a conversation. Don't go out pitching. To echo earlier comments, to build trust, you start a dialogue. You don't go on a hard sell. So yeah, short answer: start early, start now, build heat, and make the market chase you when it's actually busy season.
Thank you, Fabio. Richard?
I would agree about the comments of, on timing. I don't really understand why that's a question or a problem. I've seen founders get handed checks over a Christmas holiday period. So there's all kinds of suitable timing. I just think it's more about the business itself. So I'm assuming the low engagement was a concern about investor low engagement rather than their business metrics. So if I make that assumption, I'll just circle to, because it's quite a complex question, I'll just circle down to the part about, are there events, etc. There's a ton of events. We at Founder Institute hold a lot of events. For example, you just jump on to Luma, Eventbrite. There is a lot that you can go to. I know there are a bunch that are coming up in early Feb in March. Startup Pitch and Networking is a networking group that I often go and attend their events. You can get onto a lot of pitching panels. Entrepreneur First has them. They're just everywhere. The other thing you might consider is, and I know there's a little bit of controversy around this, but if you find the right one that might suit you, I quite like platforms where you might be able to get introduced to investors. There's a fairly new and upcoming one that we're working closely with called Syrena, Syrena. Look them up. Very, very low cost just to get you on a profile set up and get exposed to their huge network of angels and VCs. There's just tons of things you can do. So I would just be going out and doing as much of that as possible. We're making the assumption that the business is turning, is moving, you've got some traction, and you're ready. You are actually investor ready, because that is another thing that I'd question: are you investor ready? Because I don't think the timing has anything to do with it. It's whether you're ready as a business for investment, and that's something I would just revisit and ask yourself.
Event?
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate what Anton said about in terms of timing, I think for a very early stage business now would be a really, really good time leading up to the end of the tax year, with people needing to, either angels needing to use up their tax, or also the SEIS funds. So possibly look at who the most active SEIS funds and target them, because a lot of them will have time limits on when they need to deploy the funds. So they will be actively looking for opportunities. So I would say now would be the time. And just to reiterate what other people have said, that assumes you are ready to go with a fundraise.
Last but not least, Archie, please.
Yeah, completely agree with everyone there. There's no necessary bad time to to be raising. Although, you know, if you, which I've advised against at the start, if you do have 3 months left to hit a certain amount of capital, I would not advise going out, you know, over the Christmas period or over summer. Although, you know, as one of the panelists said, that tickets are still being written during this time. But yeah, spring is perfectly fine. Again, reiterating Anton and everyone else, you know, there is a bit of an uptick, in particular of SEIS and EIS investing up until this sort of end of the tax year period. But just begin conversations immediately, as long as you are well prepared for raising. If you feel you're not, but you still want to engage with investors, you know, convey that. Ask for advice. Ask for guidance. And yeah, best of luck.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'll be very quick here before we go to Rahul for his question. In London, the City of London has got a research base where you can go and register, and you can use free databases that otherwise would cost an arm and a leg, the likes of Bolhurst, for example, which I think it's for the UK, although I have to say it's pricey. But it's really good and accurate when it comes to UK deals. And I'm assuming there's something equivalent to that in Bristol if you can't afford to pay for these databases yourself. If not, when you're a founder, you got to beg, borrow, or steal. So find somebody you know in London who can register there, and you go with them and do the research. And when you do that research, you look at companies that have invested in, at investors that have invested in similar businesses to yours in the last few years, and then reach out to them. LinkedIn, emails, call them, whatever you have to do. That's one. Two, I'm only making an assumption here, and that's what happens when you can't be bothered to join us live. There's early February, StartUp Coalition hosts an event, pitch in Parliament or something along those lines. And my assumption here would be that what you're doing could actually be quite interesting to the public sector as a business idea, right? And therefore, in pitch in Parliament, StartUp Coalition also invites investors and so on, as well as government. So you could be killing a few birds with one simple stone if you register there. So StartUp Coalition, again, StartUp Coalition, go to their website and you'll find that somewhere there's a link. If not, just go and look in Luma for Pitch in Parliament, StartUp Coalition, and you'll see their events. That would be my advice. And yeah, I mean, this is gold, especially if you can go for SEIS. We have a lady that normally joins us, Angelica, at SFC Capital. They're very heavily SEIS based, but then you've got, you know, let's call them independent angels. That there's quite a few out there, but you definitely want to cover as much ground as you possibly can. Without further ado, let's go on to Rahul now. Please introduce yourself, Rahul, and then fire away with whatever questions you have for us. Team Rahul's also put his question in the chat, so if you want to relate to that as he's asking, please do that. Rahul?
Thank you, Anton, and thank you to the panel for this is gold dust. My name's Rahul. I'm the CRO at GreenTick. What we've noticed is that enterprise lose huge amounts of capacity to repetitive and low judgment work, and that directly impacts service quality, NPS, cost to serve, etc. Most AI automation pilots fail because they tend to be black boxes. They're hard to audit. What we're building is an open source backbone for digital co-workers with enterprise-grade connectors, clear KPIs, etc. We're self-funded to date with 2 shareholders on the cap table. There's Martin, who's the CEO, CTO, and myself go to market. We have secured a $60,000 order subject to us being able to get the platform production ready with a Middle Eastern client who happened to be an early adopter of a global well-known brand. And we're in discussions on over 600K more, which I know doesn't mean anything because it's just a discussion. We're looking to raise via ASA because SEIS, for anyone that's involved in that, it has been taking a long time from HMRC, and I'm just looking for advice. I'm an enterprise sales expert. I'm not a fundraising expert, and so I come with a big piece of humble pie and an open mind.
That is amazing, Rahul. Thank you very much. And by the way, panelists, Rahul's co-founder, Martin, is a regular panelist on our product and tech Q&A. So this is quite a good team. Rahul, can I ask you, so you've put in the chat there that you need to raise in order to hire somebody, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're looking, yes. Sorry, go, Anton.
No, that's okay. So how far are you from actually having this product ready to be used by people, roughly?
So we've got an MVP. I think we're about a month to 2 months away, but that month or 2 months is heavily dependent on us raising and bringing in staff to help get it built. We need people to help Martin get this thing built.
I hear you. And what sort of help are we talking about here? We're obviously talking about techies. I'm assuming Martin and yourself have done, the design and the product side. So this is just coders getting their hands dirty. Is that right? Or
correct. So 3 vibe coders, 1 DevOps security person.
Okay. And have you got anything to put into the bag or not really?
Not really at this stage. I think that's all been utilized and used over the last 6 to 8 months as we've been getting us to this point, really.
Okay. I hear you. So basically, in order to have anything done here, you need to find a way to get that work done. Otherwise, none of this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I would do, and then I'll pass you on to the experts, the investors, and the fundraising experts. I think you need to look at simultaneously 3 things here. Number 1, maybe get that person who's agreed to the 60K, try and get somebody else and go and get some invoice financing. With that invoice financing, then go and find somebody in Bangladesh to get some vibe coding done with Martin. And instead of 3 people, find 1 or 2 people, and maybe Martin guiding you as well so that you can burn that midnight candle to ship this off. In the meantime, look at angels. This is the time before the tax year. So in March, you'll have a lot of people getting their bonuses and so on. Now, you said you're not SEIS, which is quite a sorry state of affairs, and I don't mean that in a bad way, in the sense that it's a pity, because I think you could really take advantage of it, but it is what it is, right? So it's just a matter of going out there to angels and try and get something to take you over the line. Maybe there's a way to get like a bridge loan as well, if you believe in this. That could take you to the next stage. So I think my view is you are not in a position to raise today for the next 18 months, which is what I normally advise people I work with. I think you are in a position that you need to raise to get to the next stage and get it in the hands of at least 1 or 2 users. That's what I would do. But let's hear from Richard, Avent, Archie, and last but not least, Fabio, please. If we can take about a minute each, panelists, that would be great.
Thanks, Anton. You've actually covered a point that I was going to make. But look, just to, again, with the limited information, I mean, it's interesting you're saying you're open source, but is there any part of this tech that could be used from our open source as well and free credit? So, I'm sure you're aware of GitHub and all of these places where you can find templates, boilerplate code where this sort of seems to belong in the product week, but it's something that I'm close to from a product development side of things. But can some of this be built just to lower that demand on hire from open source as well? And the real standout to me, which we're seeing a lot with our founders, is getting someone on board for more sweat equity. It's a simple one. It's to me a golden oldie, and most of our founders get from the starting point where you are to where you want to be to launch that first product with someone who's prepared to do sweat equity. And I'm not sure if you're in a hurry, but there are people out there who are prepared to do it as long as they get a decent deal for them in terms of the equity. But that's really all I have for that one.
So, hi, it's Avon here. Yeah, just agreeing with what's come before, but I do think you need to get to that next stage with the product. If you look around, there are, if you're open to it, sort of about taking on effectively a co-founder that can come in and join you now and support you through the business. Obviously, you need to be very careful about who you take on, because they'll be there for the long run, or giving away some equity, or doing whatever you can to get it to that next stage, because I just think you're not quite ready. And the difference of where you'll be once you have that product, you'll be in a very different position, and I think you'll get a lot more attention at that point as well.
Not much more to add from my side. Completely agree with the two previous panelists. Yeah, best of luck, and I'll pass on.
Fabio?
Yeah, maybe a more general comment. We see that a lot. Regularly. In terms of founders coming to us and say, "Oh, I need to hire quickly and I need to raise fast," and it can be in some circumstances it can be a red flag. In some others it can be a green flag. I'm not saying it's a red flag here. I think there are strong signals that you have some order conditionally accepted in the pipe, but not to confuse urgency with inevitability. So coming to us, "Oh yeah, I need to raise fast, otherwise we're not going to get the product." And sometimes it can be a red flag. We see past that, and we see that in founders trying to buy conviction they haven't heard yet. And that can be damaging, because you can only claim urgency once. But if it's inevitable and there is already a working product, like my company said, it's very cheap to build a product now with all the tools available. So you should be able to demonstrate that you are in competition with technical founders out there who are not pros at fundraising either, but they are very good at explaining why this product needs to be shipped, where and how they are going to dispatch it, at the minimum cost. So again, urgency versus inevitability, and earning conviction as opposed to trying to buy it. That would be my general comment, I'd say.
Thank you very much, panelists. And a couple of quick things before we move on to the next one, Rahul. In my experience, a rule of thumb for a raise used to be about 6 months. From what I can see now, that has increased massively. We are talking sometimes 9 to 18 months. So it takes time. I know it's easier said than done, but maybe since both you and Martin seem to have some kind of in the Middle East, maybe there's a way that you can actually go to these clients and say, "Look, as you can see, we can build this and we can build it for you, but we're looking for a corporate investor." So don't tell them whatever the situation is, we are looking for a corporate investor to be both our early clients as well as early investors. Would you be willing to do that? And maybe you can get some money from them. But the bottom line is that, especially now with vibe coding and all the opportunities out there, unfortunately, most investors, when it comes to SaaS, because in essence this is SaaS, right? When it comes to SaaS, they're not really willing to invest in people to build their MVP or to build a product that they can ship out there. Most of the time, they may be willing to pay for somebody who's got a proof of concept, who's got clients, but who wants to grow exponentially. Of course, it's a different story if you're a founder who's already had 2 or 3 successful exits and all that jazz. Then that's a different story. I hope you found it helpful, Rahul. Any quick follow-ups?
Very helpful, and thank you all very much. That's really, really helpful. I'll go away and I'll come back when I'm ready. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rahul. Right, yeah, we've got 10 minutes to go. Now, VJ in the chat has asked a question that is not a specific question for a startup. So we can either go into that or go into some of the questions that the lovely people in our that they sent in. What would you like to do, team? Shall we get one of the questions that were sent in to us, or shall we go into VJ's question, which is about how can underrepresented founders, Black and Latino, etc., and female founders kind of increase their chances to go beyond the 2% that they currently get from VCs? What would you like to do? A quick yay or a nay. Avent? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I'm happy to have give a quick answer to VJ if you'd like, only because this is an area I've done some work around.
Okay, let's hear it on this then. So yeah, we can maybe start with Avent, Archie, who we said next, Fabio, and then Richard, please. A quick sort of guide on how can underrepresented founders go about increasing their chances at the moment.
Yeah, so I know a bit about this because we have the same problem at fund management level. I think it's around 7 or 8% of VC capital across UK, Europe is managed by women. And there is a lot going on around this space. How do we get funds, A, to get the funds into those underrepresented fund managers, and then B, into those companies. And I think there is a belief that if we, the two will be linked as well. And I think the first thing to say is there are a lot of really, really good network sort of support organizations that are focused on this. And I would definitely say being involved with them, because they know who the fund managers are. They can provide the support, they can provide the mentorship for these underrepresented founders. So there is lots of it going on. Just do some searches. It's quite easy to find out who they are. But there are fund managers raising funds now, particularly focused on this area, and there are also angel networks particularly focused on this area. So I know a few like angel networks where they've got angel investors, and they put angel founded companies in front of them. So it is an area getting attention. I think what's going to be the best thing, and something we all need to do here, is we need to shout from the rooftops about the successes, because at the end of the day, when people can see that those underrepresented founders are delivering the results that people want, that's when they will get more and more attention, more funding, and it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But start with those organizations. They are there and they are offering amazing support.
Thank you, Avent. Fabio?
Access is the issue rather than origin. So yes, there is the bias is real for sure. But I think, I mean, VCs probably don't care, so much. I mean, they do care, but they don't care if you're broke or from diversity. And I think it's very much about, if you can't get invited to the table, build your own table, and then people will come. So you have to be compelling and inevitable, and that's possible. That requires some skills and some experience and some advice, and that's going back to surrounding yourself by people who can actually open those doors, who can actually help you build that table.
Thank you, Fabio. I think we said Archie, didn't we, Archie?
Yeah, completely agree with the previous two panelists. There are a number of different either micro funds or larger VC funds, angel groups and syndicates that are focusing particularly in this area and diversity. Anything that can promote diversity of thinking and greater progress for us as a society is a good thing. And somewhat what we see in the VC industry is more indicative of issues in wider society. And so I would suggest on the one side, build something yourself and illustrate and talk about it on any platform you can, in particular LinkedIn, and then join forces with those that are growing a movement in the community themselves. Again, LinkedIn is a good place to search. A couple of names are in the UK, but the names are not quite on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, do your research, and best of luck.
Last but not least, Richard.
I'll segue in with the names. We have a focus on this diverse minority community of founders. So we're partnering up with a few, and I don't know if you're sending out notes or anything, I can throw it in the chat. FounderVine is a really great group and community that is working with underrepresented founders, and also BGF, which is Black Girl Fest. They are a studio consultancy, but they do connect founders up with investors. I've been to a couple of their events. And interesting from your comment, there's actually the 2% Club. It is very much female-led, and I think they're specific. They do work with specific sectors. I think it's health tech, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't really liaised with those guys for a while, but look, there's actually a ton of them. So I can't comment on the bias. It's real, it's there. We recognize it at Founder Institute. We work with a lot of diverse, underrepresented founders, but yeah, it is real, but there is also the support, and there's an example of some of it.
Thank you very much for that, team. Team, have we got time for one quick question, please? Last one. I love your enthusiasm. Avon, Fabio, Richard, Archie, one last question.
I'm
Yeah,
happy
to do one more.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, one more. One last.
Thank you.
One last.
Right, I'll put it in the chat. I'll read it out loud. Circular economy platform for furniture rental. They're based near Manchester. They're at seed stage. Current situation they're in is that they're considering a convertible note for their seed round, but concerned about potential dilution. Question is, our circular economy furniture rental platform is using a convertible note for seed funding with concerns about future dilution. How should we structure the cap and discount to keep early investors on board whilst remaining attractive for Series A and beyond? Are there specific UK market benchmarks for note structures in the sharing economy sector that we can rely on to maintain competitive terms? And then I can't find it because I deleted it by mistake because this question came via LinkedIn, but they'd also sent a PS postscriptum saying we are finding that this whole thing is more US centric rather than UK investors being into this stuff? What do we do? So maybe we can start with Fabio, Archie, Richard, and last but not least, Avon, please. Monsieur Lafranca.
You can jump in there, Anton, if it's...
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good, and a good thing to explore. I don't know if this has come from a point at which you've been struggling to get funding, or whether you're needing just a quick bit of extra funding as a result of, I don't know, expanding your growth plans. I'm unsure. However, from my side, just be reasonable on the discount and what it converts at. Typically, we've sort of seen, you know, like 20%, 15%, and yeah, just be realistic on your valuation. I would probably speak to your cap table, not the entirety of it, and but just to put some feelers out first of all, the consensus of those shareholders and the team, and then yeah, understand what this investor, if they do come in at this discounted amount, what are they going to bring, and what the potential is for them to follow on. Yeah, I don't know, again, the urgency at which you need this cash, or whether you need it at all, but yeah, best of luck, and I'll hand over to Fabio.
Thank you. Yes, Fabio.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yes, I think 20% is you know, market standard, and also you might want to consider to wrap, I mean, what we call cleaning up the cap table. So having all the early investors in the nominee structure, for example, like vehicle, and having defined economics. I don't want to comment on the specific economics of that round. I think there might be more details and, you know, story to it. But I would deal. I mean, the main advice I would give would be to deal with the notes, just like dealing with an equity round. Same pressure, same timeline. It would be lagging on the round. That would be costly, especially for a circular economy where exit might be not late but delayed.
Hi, Avon here. Oh, sorry. Can I go, Anton? No?
Yeah, carry on, Avon.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say the big thing for me, you know, I think there's definitely a time and a place when having the loan note can be really useful. It can be quicker to close. It prevents the issue of not having a lead to set a valuation. So there's lots to recommend it. My biggest advice is to keep it simple. Keep it as simple and vanilla and straightforward as possible. You know, look at market norms are around the 20-25% discount. Set a reasonable cap if you're putting a cap. If there's an interest rate and they set it at a reasonable level, and then just keep the most basic terms. I think what would put off investors in further rounds is when there's weird, quirky terms giving unrealistic, you know, returns to anyone. But when it's straightforward and simple, it works for everybody. So I think there is a time and a place, but keep it simple.
Thank you very much for that. Richard?
I think everyone's covered. Just for the sake of time, Anton, I agree with the said discount suggested and all the other comments. So nothing really to add there at the end.
Rightio. We are 3 minutes over the line. This is our very last, at least for the foreseeable future, weekly Q&A from February. Starting on the 9th of February to the 13th, we'll now be doing monthly Q&As instead, in order to focus on impact and have a bit of a sprint week where we basically get you to work on 6 vital parts of your business: talent, product and tech, growth, fundraising, legal, and finances. With that in mind, I'd love some parting words before I let you go. So perhaps we can start with the lady of the house, then Archie, then Fabio, and last but not least, Richard. Take it away, team.
Yeah, do your homework. Something I think people often forget to do is, when you're deciding who to go out to, do your homework in terms of the investors and make sure you find those investors that align with you in terms of geography, in terms of sector focus, size of investment. Things like that are super important. No matter how awesome your business is, if you don't fit with their criteria, they're not going to be able to invest in your business. So don't waste your time on the ones that are looking to do something completely different to what you're doing. Focus on the ones where your business and theirs aligns well. And good luck.
Yeah, completely agree. Do your homework. I think is one of the most important things, because not only does it show that you're being proactive with these names, but those investors will actually go back and take time out for you. And that when it shows that you've actually thought about what they're doing, seeing the synergies, perhaps seeing where that company may be moving to, or there may be alignment with one of their portfolio companies, they'll take the time for you. And then, yeah, almost contradictory, although you've got to be efficient with your time, not getting on calls and wasting the investors' time and wasting your time for people that actually you didn't realize weren't aligned, and only in the first minute did you realize that they're focused on Series B and you're a seed stage company. I do think you do need to take the time to talk to them as like a normal human being, not focusing completely on their investments, what they do, whether they're alignment, and then trying to keep the call to 15 minutes. Try and engage with them, not trying to be too personal, but you can create a rapport with them and try and use some humor. I don't know. Best of luck with to everyone, and wishing everyone great success in their developments with their companies.
Thank you, Archie. Fabio.
Thank you very, very much for having me on today. Fundraising isn't fair, it's not neutral, and it's not really about who you are, it's about how well you play the game. There are rules, learn them, and break them clean. Rewrite the rules of the game if you can, and build the heat, build the momentum. It's all conversation. So start the conversation early and demonstrate the alpha. Why the VC, why the investor, why the angel should invest in you, in money or in time or in introductions. If you know your alpha and you know the rules, you have a good chance.
Thank you, Fabio. Last but not least, Richard, please.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, Anton. I'm just going to follow up what Fabio said, actually, because I heard this the other day from sitting with an investor, that he said to me, he doesn't like being convinced by founders why they are worthy of the money that they're asking for, but that they're going to be successful regardless of the investor giving them that money. So that level of confidence is what they're looking for in terms of, will this founder or founders and team be successful? So be confident that you will succeed regardless of whether that investor you're pitching to is going to give you that money or not.
Well, thank you very much for that, panel. Just to pick on this, and also the last question that we had from VJ. Investment, it's almost as if going to get a loan from the bank. You are most likely to get it if you can prove that you don't need it. That's number one. Number two, in terms of bias, yes, we are humans, we all have bias, but in my experience, investors couldn't really care less if you're a woman or black or Albanian or Chinese or disabled or whatever it may be. In general, they care about one thing and one thing only, and that is to provide a fat ROI return on the investment that they make. 99.99% of them are going to be investing other people's money, and they need to report back to those people. So they've done some research, and apparently it takes one out of 33 investments to return the entire fund. So if what you're doing, if your background, if your track records, and if your business can pretty much convince a potential investor that they'll get 33x from you, that's all they care about. Now, yes, we do have, as humans, certain bias, and that's a different story. And I think where I see this changing is governments giving incentives to investors to invest in underrepresented. That's where the needle will start moving. Otherwise, it's just a matter of, who you know and how you get through to people. Now, I mentioned a few times today, this is our last weekly Q&A. We are now moving to monthly Q&As. It will be a bit of a sprint where every month we get one full week, 6 events with some of the top people in our ecosystem. You come in and you ask questions that are related to whatever challenges you have. So on the 9th of February, you can join us for Startup Talent. 10th, it's Startup Product and Tech. 11th, it's Startup Growth. 12th of February, it's Startup Fundraising. And 13th of February at 12 o'clock, it's Startup Legal. And 1 o'clock, it's Startup Finances. The others, Monday to Thursday, are all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can keep an eye out on our website when we publish these sessions. In the meantime, I'll put a link onto our WhatsApp community. You can also reach that via our website, startup2scaleup.club. At the top and bottom of the site, there's a WhatsApp icon. You click on that and you'll be able to join us on WhatsApp. As far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself as well as everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, thank you very much again to our amazing panelists. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. And remember, from February, there's no more live streams onto other platforms. So if you want to be part of this, you'll have to join us audio only on Microsoft Teams. And the beauty of that is that you can tune in from anywhere, and it doesn't matter whether you're cooking lunch in Liverpool, having lunch in Glasgow, walking your dog in Surrey, working from a shared office in London, or changing baby nappies in Bristol. This is the place to be, and it's easy to tune in because it's audio only. Parting words, they're done. So with that in mind, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Anton.
bye.
Bye.